In the annals of Roman history, few figures are as controversial and enigmatic as Emperor Elagabalus. Rising to power as a teenager, his reign was marked by opulence, religious upheaval, and personal eccentricities that shocked the Roman elite. Elagabalus ruled during a time of political volatility and moral rigidity, yet he defied nearly every convention of Roman leadership. His devotion to a foreign sun god, theatrical public rituals, and rejection of Roman norms made him a figure of outrage and fascination. Some saw a visionary, others a madman. Was he a reckless boy emperor or a radical ahead of his time? This is the story of Elagabalus, a ruler wrapped in myth, scandal, and forbidden truths. Prepare to meet the emperor Rome couldn't forget. When Elagabalus entered Rome, he didn't just bring his retinue, he brought his god. From the moment he set foot in the capital, the young emperor sought to reshape the spiritual foundation of the empire. He ordered the construction of a grand new temple, the Elagabalium, on the Palatine Hill, dedicated to his deity, Elagabal, a black conical stone believed to be a meteorite. He paraded the stone through the streets in lavish ceremonies, placing it above Jupiter, Mars, and all the traditional gods of Rome. For the conservative elite, this was not just heresy, it was blasphemy. The Senate, already wary of the boy emperor, now viewed him with deep suspicion. But Elagabalus was undeterred. He wasn't merely imposing a new religion. He was declaring a new world order. Elagabalus did not conform to Roman expectations, not in rule, not in ritual, and certainly not in identity. His personal life scandalized the Roman elite. He married multiple women, including Aquilia Severa, a Vestal virgin, an act that shattered sacred laws and tradition. But his most infamous acts, at least according to sources like Cassius Dio and Herodian, involve his gender expression and relationships with men. He requested to be called empress, wore makeup, and adorned himself in women's robes. Whispers spread that he sought physicians who could alter his body to match his self-image. Today, many see these behaviors as early expressions of gender nonconformity. But in his time, they were seen as madness. Some historians argue these stories were propaganda, meant to vilify him. But even so, the impact was real. Each act widened the rift between emperor and empire. The empire's patience was wearing thin. So was that of his family. As Elagabalus pushed the boundaries of tradition, he alienated his closest advisors. The Senate grew more resentful. The Praetorian Guard, who had helped secure his throne, now questioned his judgment. Even his grandmother, Julia Maesa, once his greatest supporter, grew alarmed. To calm the storm, she persuaded him to adopt his young cousin, Alexander Severus. The move was meant to restore stability and give Rome hope. But to Elagabalus, it felt like a threat to his power. In public, they posed as a united front. But behind closed doors, the palace seethed with tension. The Praetorians began whispering their loyalties elsewhere. In the darkened dungeons beneath the palace, the boy trains in silence. The old woman watches from the shadows, not guiding, only judging. Each strike he delivers echoes louder, not only through the stone corridors, but through the hearts of those who begin to see something more in him. The emperor, bound by illness and time, starts to realize the heir may not only replace him, but surpass him. When rebellion brews in the outer provinces, the boy is sent, not as a prince, but as bait. Betrayal hangs thick in the air. The guards whisper. The old woman does not intervene. Alone and cornered in enemy territory, the boy must rise not with help, but with resolve forged in pain. This is not the story of a boy becoming a man. It's the story of a soul breaking its chains. Word of the boy's survival spreads like wildfire. Not only did he live, he won. The rebellion was crushed not by armies, but by one who was never meant to lead. The emperor's illness worsens. Whispers now call the boy Shadow's son, a child once in darkness, now casting his own light. The court stirs with unease. The old guards resent him. The Senate fears him, but the people, they chant his name. In marble halls, the boy does not seek a throne. He seeks justice for those abandoned, forgotten. For himself, in the silence of the temple, he confronts the old woman. Why me? He asks. She replies, because you were never meant to serve. You were meant to burn down what needed ending. And so, the air becomes the storm. The old emperor is dead. No funeral wails, only silence thick as smoke. The boy, now barely more than that in years, steps into a world of daggers sheathed in smiles. His first decree isn't war, it's truth. He walks barefoot through the slums, speaks to mothers who've buried sons, to beggars who once were soldiers. The Senate gasps, the generals sneer, but the people begin to believe. Then the fire comes, an assassination attempt, poison in his chalice. He drinks, he stumbles, he lives, barely. The next morning, he appears on the palace balcony, pale but standing. "You try to kill me," he says to no one and everyone. "You will try again, but I am not your puppet. I am Rome's reckoning." The city roars. Somewhere deep inside the palace, another dagger is drawn. Power changes a man, or reveals him. The boy emperor begins to sharpen. His voice no longer trembles. His gaze cuts like forged steel. He abolishes corrupt taxes, frees imprisoned scholars, and challenges ancient traditions. But peace is a shallow thing in Rome. The Senate, once merely skeptical, turns hostile. Whispers crawl through stone halls like rats. One morning, the empress mother is gone. No word, no funeral, just a vacant throne beside his. The boy doesn't flinch. He does not mourn. Instead, he takes the symbol of power, the laurel wreath, and places it on a peasant child's head during a festival. A crown means nothing without justice, he declares. Some cheer, others plot. The emperor smiles, cold, calculating. The boy is gone. Only the ruler remains. The emperor is no longer a symbol. He is a force. He walks alone into the Senate chamber. No guards, no advisors, just his presence. The marble walls echo with accusations. Too young, too bold, a threat to tradition. He listens, then he speaks, not as a boy desperate to prove his worth, but as a leader who knows the cost of silence. "I was raised to obey," he says, "but I have learned to lead. Rome does not need statues of old men. It needs action." Gasps, murmurs, some rise to walk out, but most remain. That night, the Senate does not sleep, and neither does the emperor. He reads letters from provinces, meets with generals, writes laws by candlelight. Every stroke of his quill reshapes Rome. But inside the palace, fear and frustration were mounting. The emperor's obsession with discipline had turned into paranoia. He began accusing senators of treason, executing even his closest advisors without trial. The people feared him. The Senate despised him. But the soldiers, once loyal, were now humiliated and angry. He slashed their pay. He punished entire legions for imagined insults. He made them kneel before statues of his ancestors. And when one officer refused, he was beheaded on the spot. The emperor didn't realize it, but his fate was sealed. The guards who once protected him now whispered of rebellion. It was supposed to be a routine visit to the baths. The emperor, surrounded by his guards, strolled into the steaming chamber. But this time, they didn't come to protect him. In an instant, they turned on him. No trial, no warning, just steel, blood, and silence. The emperor cried out, but no one answered. Even his heir, the boy he had reluctantly adopted, stood by, trembling. The emperor who ruled with fear died in fear, at the hands of the very men he once commanded. Rome didn't mourn for long. A new emperor took the throne, one more acceptable to the Senate and the elite. The teenage heir faded into obscurity. History quietly turned the page. No statues, no grand tombs, no triumphs. The man who ruled an empire was remembered more for his death than his life. Betrayed, forgotten, erased, all because he dared to be different. But history has a funny way of remembering the outrageous. And that's why we're still talking about him today. The torches burned low, the footsteps echoed, and the emperor who thought he controlled fate met his end at the blades of his own guards. Was it justice or just survival? In Rome, loyalty was currency, and his had run out. If this ending caught you off guard, imagine what the next emperor's story holds. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because in ancient Rome, the next twist was always deadlier.